I want to welcome you to this exciting time. I'm Sola Adesoye, and welcome to the conversation. I hope that your day has really been fruitful. I think that many of you have hopefully taken time to rest today, especially it being a public holiday and creating another opportunity for us just to power down so that we can from tomorrow power up again, and then the weekend is just around the corner. So well, I really don't know how your the rest of your week is going to be, but trust me, I've taken time to rest today, and here we are enjoying all of God's best, and also trying to reflect on the nation Nigeria. It is difficult right now to just you know disconnect from the narrative in our country today. Nigeria is our nation. It is my nation. I'm a full-blooded Nigerian, citizen of this great country. I'm a citizen of no other country. It's one of the reasons why many of us, other people who are like me, are passionate about this country, because we're concerned and we must ensure that Nigeria does work. And so tonight, if you're just joining us on this broadcast, I want you right now to click the share button. It is so important for you to extend an invitation, and that's the way technology has created things now. So you can click your share button, you can invite a friend, you can copy the link and share it on WhatsApp, to your broadcast group, so that other people can join us on this conversation. And believe me, it promises to be an exciting time. And today our focus is the birthing of a new Nigeria. And we all know that the last 3 weeks has been traumatic for us as a nation. Having to see our young people get on the streets, making demands. Hashtag EndSARS is one that we will never forget in the vocabulary of Nigeria. We've seen how that, peaceful protest has truly just gone haywire. Hoodlums stepped into the scene and became overwhelming. And at the end of the day, we saw young people shot at by the military in this country at Lekki. We've seen hoodlums go on a rampage in so many states in the country. We've seen people looting COVID palliatives. We've also gotten all kinds of responses from those who sit in the seat of government. And I can't help but say that all of what has happened truly is enough to traumatize any individual. But I believe that there is hope, and I dare say that there is hope for us as a country. And that's why we're here tonight. And so with me tonight, I am so glad and so excited to have on set tonight a simply profound man who is we're going to be having this conversation with. Let me welcome Professor Vincent Anigbogu to this set this evening. Welcome, sir. Really great having you here.
Thank you, Pastor Shala. I'm very happy to be here. And you're looking wonderful, sir.
Thank you, sir. You're looking exquisite. And I keep thanking God for you. Now, for those of you who do not know Prof, I'll just read a bit about him. Professor Vincent Anigbogu is the Director General of the Institute for National Transformation. He's a consultant to nations in Africa on matters of nation building and development. Is a highly sought after speaker at conferences around the world, and he is a consummate gentleman. I mean, looking at the way he's all dressed up this evening, I mean, that speaks volumes. Good to have you here, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Well, sir, here we go. I was just saying earlier, the last 3 weeks have really been extremely eventful for us as a country. some of us have been proud to see our young men and women get out on the streets to demand for justice, especially as relates to the role of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad in harassing our young people, stereotyping, extortion, and very often bordering on issues of rape as well. But we've also seen that protest result in seeing the military shoot at our young ones. We've seen all of that peaceful protest degenerate into a rage in our cities. Warehouses were looted and all kinds of things. Houses were burnt, people were attacked, and so on and so forth. Now, before we begin to look at the events that have taken place, I really want to feel your pulse. Some of us are traumatized by what has happened. There are many out there who are saying, with what has happened, Nigeria is truly a hopeless country. So, did you see this coming? I mean, are there a series of events that you could point to say, look, it might not have been accurate, but we were going to degenerate, or things were going to degenerate over a period of time? I really want your take on that, sir.
Well, what has happened is very predictable, extremely predictable. A socialist once said, every generation, every civilization is one generation away from barbarism. Every civilization, it doesn't matter where, whether US, whether UK, every one of those civilizations are one generation away from barbarism. Why? When they fail to harness the energy, the strength of the youth, especially between the age of 15 and 30, and consistently channel that energy in the direction of constructive nation building. Once they fail to do that, they stand a chance of those youth using that energy to destroy instead of to build. So in a case where Nigeria has neglected this fundamental principle, it's just a matter of time before they will rise up and say, we need a new direction. Unfortunately, many have not yet been equipped with the constructive strength, wisdom that they need to express that. So what's happening today is indeed predictable. But let me even go further. Maybe you will ask me this question. We started well as a nation. I was on CNBC on October 20th, and I said that we started well. The vision was clear: to build a nation that's bound in freedom, peace, and unity. A nation where truth and justice will reign. A nation where no man is oppressed. If you study both the old and the new national anthem, those were wonderful visions. Unfortunately, we didn't understand the process, and so we're suffering from it.
Wow, I mean that is so deep. Taking us back to some of the things you said. Every generation is one generation away from barbarism, and you did zero in on something crucial, which for me I want to take maybe get a few points from you from it, and which is the fact that the youths whose energy, potentials, capacity should have been harnessed somehow haven't had that done. And I mean, naturally, that points the finger to government, because government has a major responsibility, not just in in vision casting, as we found out of our foundation, but also in the process towards the achievement of vision. However, sir, looking at Nigeria and the fact that we came out of military rule, and those years of military rule couldn't really count much for the building of a great nation. But 1999, we all celebrated and rejoiced at the fact that we came out of military rule into democratic rule. And that has given us right now probably about 21 years of democratic rule. I would expect that if the military junta and the rulership could not guide the process towards the harnessing of the potentials of our youth, I would think that with 21 years of democratic rule, we should have gotten some things right. So what's really wrong? Are these 21 wasted years? Because if I speak like someone who's pedestrian, I know of road projects that were started 19 years ago, Abuja Lokoja Road. And up till today, it is not 100% completed. So if you look at that and you try to juxtapose it, what's the essence of our 21 years of democratic rule?
Actually, just before I make my point, military rule could have been an advantage instead of a disadvantage. If you study history, you will know that what catalyzed the transformation of South Korea was military rule. Because military people are disciplined people. If they had transmitted that discipline into the society, it would have been a positive phenomenon. But when they did not transmit that discipline, because study has shown, and I refer to a book by Jim Collins, it's called Good to Great. I recommend every listener to get a copy of it. Good to Great says, how do you go from good to great? And they gave 3 key principles. If you're going to build a great nation, number 1, you need disciplined people, people of character, people of that are hardworking, people that are disciplined, have integrity. That is number 1. And then number 2 is competence, skills. But skill is second, not first. So military could have converted this nation, as in case of Israel, as in case of Singapore. They actually use military to discipline their children to produce men and women of character. Unfortunately, we didn't take advantage of that. But let me go further and say this. Nation building goes through stages. Just like raising a child, it requires that you take the child through different stages. The same way, you must take a nation through different stages. Number 1, I call it the mourning season of a child, or a nation for that matter, is when the nation is still very young, when we are still learning the art of building a nation. So in the mourning season, what is actually required, the emphasis should be more on capacity development, learning the tools of the game. Education becomes the most important sector during this phase, because education must produce disciplined people, competent people with whom the nation will now build. If you fail to do that, then in the afternoon of engaging in development, you have no people to work with. You have people who have wrong priorities, wrong expectations, and you can't build a nation with them. Anything you build, they will tear down. And of course, there's the evening season when we should be enjoying the fruit of our labor. We would have gone from third world to first world. Our our energy will now be invested in finding more ways to be competent, relevant, increase our productivity. But when you miss day one, when you miss the morning season, everything becomes a struggle. And that's what I was referring to when I say that every nation is one generation away from barbarism.
Wow. So, how would you juxtapose that within Nigeria? Um, Based on what you've said, it looks like we missed our morning season.
We're trying to do today, we're trying to address people. Today, we are 60 years of old. And I'm sorry to say, a fool at 60 is in serious trouble. I wouldn't say we are a fool forever. We are now having to learn what we ought to have done in the 60s and the 70s, when we ought to have built excellent schools, when we would have focused on building competencies, people of character and skill, and then use them to build factories and industries. We missed that. We even sent our children abroad. We forgot them there. We it's like working so hard to develop your children, but you didn't work hard enough to bring them back so that they can actually build up the nation. So we have to go back to the drawing board. And I have to appeal to our adults. Let's accept our mistake. Let's be calm. Let's be patient with these children. We have not indeed raised them right. Let's do what we can to direct and channel them properly.
That's awesome, sir. Thank you for that insight. Recently, the agitation of the youths in this country. Do you see that as let's even look before we focus on the objectives? Do you see it as a good sign, as a sign of hope? There is the idea, for example, that the older generation has literally been frozen in terms of demanding for their rights from government and those that they have elected into office to do what is right. And so a new generation arose to make demands. What do you think about the movement that began? Is it a sign of hope? Is it a light at the end of the tunnel? I know that, yes, there may be a need to guide and channel, all of that energy right. But just the fact that they are rising up to make demands, what do you say about that, sir?
In conflict resolution, we say that conflict is not a bad thing. In fact, if your body does not express pain, how would you know that you are sick? If you don't have headache, how do you know you should stop and check yourself? So what the children have done is proper. They are telling us that we are not happy. They are telling us that something needs to be done. It is good. But what is bad is when conflict results in destruction of life on both sides. Then that conflict has gone outing. But the fact they have risen up to express themselves is good. And I believe if we can harness that energy, if we can harness that interest, if we can talk with them, let them know that we have heard them, we have their best interest at heart, and we are determined to help them succeed and take over from us. If we can achieve that, then even us as adults, we would have succeeded, because the desire of every generation is to hand on a baton to the next generation. And according to our old national anthem, it says to hand over to our children a banner, a flag without stain. Unfortunately, we recently stained that flag.
Wow. Thank you for that, sir. If you're just joining us on this conversation, I'm sure that you're being enriched by the things that you're hearing. Again, if you're just coming on, just click the share button and bring other people on board. It's a great, 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 great benefit that you'll be extending to them. Now, sir, looking at the protests again,
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Am I the one or is it your line?
I think it's our end, sir. There was a power outage. We can't understand why it's happening, but we'll be back on in about a minute or two, sir.
Okay, no problem. I will stand by. Okay.
I must apologize for that break in transmission. Unexpected, still trying to fathom what went wrong, but it's good to be back and it's good to connect with you again. I'd like to bring Prof back onto the set. Thank you, sir. Technology sometimes
Thank you.
goes haywire. Well, good to have you back,
That's
sir.
all right.
I wanted to ask a question relating to leadership. So we've seen what has happened in the country with our youth And we've seen the response of leadership as well. My personal conviction is that the government could have acted out better and have done better. Now, but I want to use that to take us back, because the pulse of Nigerians generally, and quite interestingly, before the president's speech, when it was announced that the president was going to speak, most people were not expecting anything, anything positive, anything encouraging. And I think there has been a trend with Nigerian leadership that it almost seems as if there are, I don't know how to put it, but before elections, when they're canvassing for people's votes, there seems to be a passion, a dream, a vision of what they want to do. But the minute they get there, they seem to lose track of it. Now, without sounding overly mystical or spiritual, it's easy to say there are demons there that are ensuring that Nigeria does not emerge out of darkness into light. But what do you think is the problem? Is it that we've not had the best of leaders, we've not been fortunate enough? Or is it that something happens when people get into the seat of power? From your own experience in leadership roles and in national transformation agenda, what would you say?
Thank you. This is the $1,000,000 question, if I may use that expression. Something that every Nigerian, in fact, every African has been pondering on. Let me start by honestly saying that people cannot give what they don't have. Again, I say it, people cannot give what they do not have. Our fathers have done the best they know how. They have given us, and they are sincere about what they are doing. What we now need to ask ourselves is, what kind of leader, if these ones have not yet taken us to the promised land, what kind of leaders will take us to the promised land? I've given this a lot of thought, and I will tell you the kind of leadership that we must produce. And that's why I'm urging these children, don't rush into leadership without not first understanding why and how the leaders that have gone before you have failed. There's a proverb in Nigeria that says that a child that does not take time to understand what killed his father may eventually be killed by the same thing. There are 5 qualities that a leader must have if he's going to lead Nigeria well. Number 1, any leader that will lead Nigeria must have what I call a moral capacity, and that is the ability to do good, the ability to build a national sense of what is right and wrong, especially in God's eyes. After all, our national anthem says, "O God of creation, direct our noble cause." Therefore, leaders that must lead us in this season must have strong moral capacity and the ability to lead in justice and in righteousness. Number 2, they must have a strong emotional capacity. What do you mean? What do I mean? They must be courageous, they must be bold in setting goals, in charting a course for the nation. They must also be patient, knowing that we have a diversity of people in Nigeria. You can be impatient towards some people. We must learn to be patient with all and find a way to work, yet be courageous and bold, not just to do what is right, but to chart the right course. Number 3, Any leader that will lead Nigeria must have intellectual capacity. Now, intellectual capacity is not just gathering knowledge and coming to give impressive speeches. That's not intellectual capacity. Intellectual capacity means using the knowledge you have to guide the nation towards good and great outcomes, knowing how to build systems and knowing how to monitor, knowing how to evaluate projects to know which one is working, which one is not working, using knowledge to impact the nation. That's what intellectual capacity means, not learning facts and using it to confuse people in very impressive speeches. Number four, of course, they must have the physical capacity, the vitality to run that office, because running and leading a nation or even a state for that matter is a highly demanding task. So the person must be healthy. And finally, they must have good social capacity, which is the ability to bring together people of diversity, different tribes, different tongues, different religion. Our old national anthem said, though tribes and tongue may differ, but in brotherhood we stand. A leader that will lead Nigeria to that new era must be someone who will galvanize us, who will mobilize us. And those are the 5 key skills I think any leader, and I'm even sharing this with the youth, strive to develop these qualities before you get to a position of leadership.
Thank you, sir. I was going to ask you, I mean, fantastic, and I agree with you. I was going to ask you, where shall we find such a man and how shall he emerge into leadership? Because we know the political structure and the political system. So maybe I put that to you. Where shall we find such a man and how shall he emerge into leadership?
Question. First of all, the 5 capacities I've mentioned, they are not of equal importance. I think the most important one is the moral capacity. Lee Kuan Yew said that over the years of leading Singapore, he has found that the number one quality of leadership is good people. He said if you find good people, they will make a fairly decent progress in leadership. So let's start with people who are good-hearted, who can mobilize us, who can galvanize us, and then other skills they will acquire as they move, they take us ahead. So the youth should pay attention definitely to 2013 and begin to look for good-hearted men and women who have the potential also for intellectual growth and so on and so forth, and begin to encourage them and prepare them for 2013. So start somewhere and then get what you want eventually.
2023 is around the corner already.
Yes.
And some are already beginning to feel it's a little late. Do you agree with that? I mean, we've got about 2 years, so to speak. Is it too late, or we can still make things happen then?
I don't think it's too late. I mean, to give up would be suicidal. I think youth should flood the 2 parties, both APC, PDP, as they are led, and get involved. Get involved in the voter registration, get involved at all levels, begin to make input. The same demands you have made, and those demands are proper and should be heeded to. Penetrate the system and make those demands. And change starts from within. You can't be outside and change the system. You just like salt, you must first penetrate the medium before you can flavor it. So it's not too late.
Now, what there also is, signs of a generational shift. Now, I've heard some of the voices of the young people, and they're saying, away with the old. Our older generation, they failed us. They have nothing to offer. We are the new. We're ready to take on the baton of leadership. We don't need the old. The popular proverb that says, what a young man climbs, a palm tree to view, the old man sitting under the palm tree has already seen it. And they brought out their own version that the young man no longer needs to climb a palm tree. He can use technology and use drones, and he'll be able to see further than the older man. Now, the question is this, that what generational bridges, okay, let me put it this way. Do we need to build a generational bridge, connecting the old with the new? And how do we begin to do this? Because with these young people who feel we don't need the older generation, look at what we've been able to do by ourselves. We've been able to organize, strategize, plan, implement without the effort. So we can run this course on our own. What generational bridges do we need to build?
Excellent question, Pastor Sola. First of all, let me caution the youth. You still need the elders. But also, the elders should be aware that many of our youths are well prepared for position of leadership. So it takes both understanding in order for this transition to occur. And let me say something here. Leadership is about obeying certain principles. And these principles have been available for ages. The youth need to sit with adults so that some of these principles, especially in the area of social interactions and what have you, to be transmitted. Principles do not change, but the technology through which it can be expressed can change. Therefore, to say that the old are totally irrelevant is a wrong perception. The youth may do things faster, they have technology, but technology is not an initiator of change. Technology is only an accelerator of change. But if the foundation upon which the change is wrong, technology can only enhance the wrong thing. And I will use the biblical story of David, who was keeping his father's sheep and taking care of his father's, should I say, properties. And then he was called from a position of faithfulness where he was faithfully serving his father. Let me even say this. In serving his father, David developed 5 core capacities. I mentioned them. He developed moral capacity. He developed emotional capacity, ability to fight lions and what have you. He developed intellectual capacity. He developed also, if you will, social capacity as well as physical capacity. When his father now asked him to go and take food to his brothers, his father did not know that David had matured enough even to tackle a Goliath. He didn't know. He totally underestimated David. And even when David arrived at the battlefield, his 2 brothers underestimated his capacity. But David did not riot. He didn't curse them. He remained quiet and resolute. There is something called quiet determination to prove yourself first before credit is given. Even King Saul didn't recognize the capacity of David, but after David fell Goliath, everybody immediately came to the understanding that David was indeed matured. There's a proper way to prove your talent. It's not by confrontation, it is by quiet performance, taking over critical areas and showing that you can do it better. I wish the youth will adopt that strategy. And I can tell you, once they begin to prove themselves, the adults will easily give way. That's my humble opinion.
Thank you again, sir. Now, we saw, and truly one must commend the way the youth organized themselves. They were deliberate on the fact that the protests were to be peaceful, and it was peaceful for a time. They marched peacefully, even though we began to see them again infringe on the rights of, normal citizens by blocking access roads and so on and so forth. But generally, it was peaceful. But today, that peaceful protest skyrocketed or just went haywire, and we saw a lot of looting, especially of warehouses in several states. Now, there are two sides to the coin. Some people feel the people had a right. I remember a video I saw where in Abuja, there was a warehouse they were trying to loot. And they were having, some form of conversation with the military officers. And they were saying to them, look, the things stored in here belong to us. These are things that belong to us. We have a right to collect our own dividends of, the palliatives from COVID-19. But then again, we saw the flip side where there was damage to property, there was looting, and some people feel that's justified because these things were kept, they belong to the Nigerians, but they were kept by politicians and by leaders who are now saying, well, we did want to give it to you. Now, so here are two sides of a coin. For many, I never thought, and for someone like me, I never thought it would come to a point in this country when we'd see this level of pillaging and looting. Would you say that the reason why this happened with spontaneity is a reflection of dissatisfaction with leadership? Is it economic situations, poverty, lack of jobs that's causing these people to go out, to just strip assets and property like locusts?
Mm. I repeat myself, when you have failed to develop and add value to a generation, it builds up anger, frustration. And once that frustration reaches a level, it could take anything to trigger it. You never know what will be the igniting matches. But once it's ignited, you begin to see expression of frustration. I'm not in support of destruction of properties. I'm not in support of looting. But apparently there's a disconnect between those people that are supposed to provide those distribution of those palliatives. There was a disconnect between them and the people for whom they are intended. If they had announced palliative has come, we plan to distribute them X, Y, and Z certain times, and we're developing the procedure, people will not frustrate because they know that help is coming. But when they don't know and they feel it belongs to them, they feel they have been denied, rightly or wrongly. Perception is very important. And that's why transparency in communication is extremely important. I wish that they had announced the availability of those things and the plan to distribute them. I think people would not have reacted as angrily. But let me also say this in conclusion. The youth also should be careful. in trying to express your right, if you use the wrong principles and you justify it, when you are in power, you're going to start using those wrong principles against yourselves. So it will backfire. So I would never justify doing the wrong thing for any reason. Rather, do it the right way. And I should also say that the youth should take whatever is happening in Nigeria today as a lesson, determining among themselves that when we have our opportunity, we will do better.
Wow, doing the right thing. You can't emphasize and echo that again and again. Again, however, we live in a country, sir, where it almost appears as if those who do the right things end up getting the wrong end of the stick. They are many times not economically empowered. They're many times not even trusted in leadership because it is believed that they are too straight to handle leadership and power, in government. And lots of people, I've seen people who have started out doing the right thing, who somewhere along the line says, look, it doesn't even pay to do the right thing. I've seen politicians who came into power, and in their first 4 years, they were honest, and character and integrity was their watchword. And when they left power, they realized that literally they were in penury. The second time they got the opportunity to get back into power, they literally walked like people who felt doing right does not pay. And I believe in what you've said, but sir, how do we communicate this message out beyond just cliches? Do the right thing, do the right thing, do the right thing. How do we get this message out in such a way that people just don't, walk by what has been said, but they actually believe it absolutely?
It's a tall order. I think there are lessons to be learned on both sides. On the part of our leaders, from national to state to even local governments, I think, and I'm hoping we are all learning a lesson to pay attention to our people, their welfare, and do what we can. I know, Pastor Shola, I know many political leaders that are sincere and really doing their best. I know many, and it's not easy. I know what they go through, but there are others also that are, I would say, not using their position to do the right thing. I'm also going to advise the youth, do not repeat the mistake of the elders. Learn from their mistakes. Learn from uh, the fact that accumulating wealth never leads to what we call success or happiness in life. What actually leads to happiness in life is living your life for other people. Offer your life to help others. You will be happy, not accumulating wealth and denying others. If our youth can learn that principle, and I agree among themselves that when opportunity is given to them and it's not too far in the future, they will lead differently with a different mentality. They will not lead with the hunter mentality that goes on looking who to steal from and so on and so forth. But they will live like farmers, that every opportunity given to them, they will nurture. It's an opportunity to look at the last 60 years and say, God forbid, we're not going to toe that line. We will do what is right. Singapore has shown us that righteousness exalts a nation. Today, they are the third wealthiest nation in the world because they practice righteousness. Pastor Shola, righteousness pays, but it's very hard initially.
Thank you, sir. Well, you mentioned righteousness, and I know that you're a man of great faith, a man of faith, one who loves God, and you live out of the principles of the scripture. and you're a man who is plugged into the church, the body of Christ in many ways as well. So now I want us to focus on the church. What do you believe, sir, that the church has a significant role to play in national transformation, in the reformation of Nigeria, so to speak?
If you want to know my thought, I think transformation should start from the church, should start from the house of God. In fact, our national anthem even prescribes that. It says, "O God of creation, please direct our noble cause." What is our noble cause? To build a nation that's bound in freedom, peace, and unity. The same stanza says, "O God of creation, guide our leaders right." And it even says, "O God of creation, help our youth the truth to know." The whole national anthem hinges on God, which points to the religious, not just the church, even the Islamic and other religious leaders. Our focus must be on building one nation that's bound in freedom, peace, and unity.
Thank you, sir. There are many Christians out there who are afraid of, the terrain of politics because they believe it's dirty. Again, the church has in time past taken a posture, and that posture is, there are certain areas and territories that are exclusive for certain people, but not for Christians. We know scripture speaks about and uses the metaphor of salt and light. So what do you think pastors need to begin to do, need to begin to teach? And how do you think they need to operate to change this paradigm that has locked so many people in the church walls and has hindered them from actively participating in governance?
This is one of the areas where every time I think about it, I feel a lot of pain. And I say this with all respect, the ignorance with which the church has operated. Pastor Shola, let me say this to you. In describing Christ in John chapter 1, verse 3, say, "Through him all things are made. Without him, there is nothing made that is made." And Colossians go further to say that in him all things consist. Nowadays, when I teach people in government and in businesses, I try to show them that everything has its origin in God. Everything. So when we say that church should not be involved in government, is government part of everything that he created? When we say we should not be involved in business, is business part of everything he has created? I believe that everything he has created is our business. So we need to expand our understanding of God and what he stands for, an understanding of his kingdom and the principles of the kingdom, because we're supposed to raise, I just shared with you the 5 characteristics of a leader that can make impact: moral capacity, intellectual capacity, emotional capacity, social capacity, and of course, physical capacity. Where best can they be trained and those capacities imputed in them than in the religious house, especially the church? So I think it's ignorant.
Well, thank you, sir. The question I'll ask still relates to that, and I think it's the tail part of my initial question, which is what should church leaders begin to do? Because should our teaching change from the typical prosperity and economical empowerment teachings that has pervaded the church today, do we is there a new mindset that these leaders must have? All right, Prof, there's a disconnection there, but in the meantime, we're going to be looking at some of the comments that some of our viewers have been putting on while we wait for Prof to get back, and just to capture, the essence of tonight's conversation. So we'll just be looking at some of those highlights. Can we have some of these on the screen right now? Quiet determination. Okay, the birthing of a new Nigeria will require collaborations between the old and the new generation. We also have transparency in communication is important. That's Godwin Joseph. Principles do not repeat the mistakes. Principles do not repeat the mistakes of our leaders. Do not see leadership as a means to gather up wealth. Again, this shows that we've got viewers who have been following technology as an accelerator of change, not an initiator. Powerful truths we've heard from our guests today. And these are 5 critical, essential characteristics of leaders: strong moral capacity, strong emotional capacity, intellectual capacity, physical capacity, and good social capacity. We've got Prof back, so we're going to bring him back on the screen right now. Prof, so slight challenge with connectivity. We're back to you. Can you respond to what should our church leaders should be doing, teaching things differently, and articulating and building church from a totally different mindset? I need us to hear from you, sir.
Actually, I was saying that I was talking about the 5 capacities of leadership required, and I'm glad the viewers have captured them. Where best can they get those capacities? There are 3 institutions that are supposed to raise competent men and women with character in our society. Number 1, the family. Number 2, the religious institutions. And number 3, the educational institutions. When children or our children go through these 3 institutions and they have not been optimized, well developed in those 5 areas, then we have failed collectively as a society. And that's why every time I watch the Human Development Index, and you see African nations ranking below 500, maybe a few of them have scored above 500. But Sola, what that is saying is that many African nations have institutions on ground to develop their children at best to the 50% of their capacity, at best, which means they have to go to other nations like US, UK that have the systems and the processes to develop them to the fullness of their capacity. That to me also points to the failure of the church. We need to go back to human capital development, imputing character and competence in our young people, and release them to go and restore the society. That's our calling.
Thank you for reminding us of that call, and thank you for highlighting, these 3 critical institutions: the family, the religious, and the educational. And again, when we look at it in Nigeria, we can see the challenges that these 3 are beginning to have. And it therefore means that there must be men and women of great courage and skill who would see themselves as carrying a mandate to fix family, to fix religion, and to fix the educational sector as well. So it's been really an engaging time. We're going to be taking a couple of questions from our guests in a little while. I want to ask you this question before we go to a question from one of our viewers. where do you see Nigeria in 10 years? I know that's a huge, and maybe even challenging question, but through the eyes of faith, let me say that through the eyes of faith, where do you see us in the next 10 years as a country?
Let me start by saying that it's not my desire to see Nigeria broken. So I believe we'll still be together. I keep telling old people like me, we think we will live forever. But time is coming when we have to step aside. So I see the young people, the emerging leaders stepping in and taking this nation to a higher level because they don't have the issues of tribal bias, they don't have the issue of religious bias. They relate with each other far better. So I am very optimistic about Nigeria, regardless of the challenges of the moment.
That's awesome. And I share in your optimism as well. Now, here's a question that's coming up on the screen right now. It is from Sunday Udo. And the question goes, what's your opinion on the saying, power is never given, it must be taken? It would appear David stepped up to the challenge of Goliath despite being underestimated by everyone. So what's your take on that, sir?
That's an excellent example, but watch how David took the power. It was not given to him. His father didn't say, David, prepare, I'm sending you to the front to kill Goliath. The father didn't think he had that capacity. And when he got to the front, his brothers also didn't think he had that capacity. But David didn't riot. He didn't disrespect them. He remained quietly resolute. It's almost like saying inside of himself, just give me a chance, I will show you. Just give me a chance, I will show you. So you take power through demonstration of competence. It's not necessarily through making noise and shouting. It's through demonstration of competence. All David was asking for, an opportunity to demonstrate his competence. And once that was granted, the rest is history.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Again, we want to do a recap of some of the comments that has come out of tonight's conversation from our guests, and just to highlight critical things that have been said today. So we'll look at this. The birthing of a new Nigeria will require collaborations between the old and the new generations. That is profound. Technology is an accelerator of change and not an initiator. We've looked at these 5 points, and it needs to be emphasized again: strong moral capacity, strong emotional capacity, intellectual capacity, physical capacity, and good social capacity. Those are critical elements that are required. We've looked at this earlier. Transparency in communication is very, very important. The youth must not repeat the mistakes of the past. And that takes us interesting. I think I'd like to bring something out of that, because we've seen a discounting of history in our educational curriculum. And it is said that if you are not a child of history, you can be a parent of the future. So we have young people who do not understand even how Nigeria gained independence, who do not understand, the dispensation of the military and the way they did lead. So what would you say to our education policy makers with respect to the role of history in the development of a nation?
Well, I think you captured it very well. Those who do not know history will end up repeating history. History is beneficial in the sense that it helps us to analyze, if you will, the situation, circumstances, and how people reacted. And from there, you gain wisdom. I will strongly advise our youth, even though they may not be formally presented with the materials that have captured the history of the nation. Take it upon yourself to read up. Not to know your history is very dangerous. Not to know your past is extremely dangerous. And of course, I will advise our policymakers in education to please restore the authentic history of Nigeria. Those are wealth of wisdom, knowledge that our children can glean from that we are denying them. And I don't think it's fair.
Thank you so much, sir. I know you have had a long day, but truly this has been an enriching conversation. And I can't thank you enough for availing yourself to be a part of a program that has blessed people again and again, and to help our youth. You've spoken from great wisdom, great understanding, and we trust God that as the new Nigeria is emerging, that God will position you to be one of the key principal actors in guiding this nation to fulfill her prophetic destiny. Is there a final word you want to give to our viewers, sir?
I just want to encourage the youth of Nigeria, do not despair. The future that's ahead of you is great. Don't insult your fathers, honor them, glean as much wisdom as you can, learn from their mistakes, but prepare yourself, please, for a great future. The Lord bless you, and thank you, Pastor Shola, for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. And my regards to your lovely wife and the entire family. And do have a wonderful evening. God bless you, sir. Well, if you've been a part of the conversation tonight, you know it's been rich, it's been deep, it's been exciting, it's been illuminating, and truly mind-boggling. Thank you for joining us on this platform, and for every one of you that has taken the effort to share this broadcast. Thank you. God bless you. Nigeria is one country that is destined to be great, and we must not give up on her. Nigeria has a prophetic destiny to fulfill in God, and all we have been seeing in the last couple of weeks are what I describe as the birth pangs of a great nation. In a little while, we will see the birthing of a great nation. God bless you. Have a lovely evening from me, Sola Adesoye, and the entire media team of the Lighthouse. Have a wonderful evening.